Okay, so we just kind of went through a whole variety of things that we talked about um, that helped make up composition. You know, placement, camera, focus, color, um, reflections, no reflections, environment, basically. All of those things can make up for a good composition. Even, you know, if we look at it and how we frame everything. So what I'm going to want you to do, and I'll walk through this here too as we go, is I don't you need to use at least a minimum. Let me rephrase that. So I want two environments, and I'll show you how to do that. One with a singular object that is rendered out in a composition, and then one that has multiple objects in it. All the objects are going to be either a cube, a cylinder, or a sphere. It can be all spheres, it can be all cubes, whatever you like. I just want to keep this very simple. It's not an exercise on getting materials on there or spending a whole lot of time on doing something fancy. It's about clean and simple, but a focus on composition. So, a couple things that I want to show you. So we talked about background, you know, and coloring. So we all know that if we come up here, we can go to our environment and we can do color, and we have the ability to change the color over in this area here under environments. So we can go in and change that. Keeping in mind that if we don't have a ground plane, we can still, let me just toss this on here. I don't know why it shows it as a, there we go. So I'm just going to bring that in. I'm going to select it. I'm going to come into my scenes and go with position. I just want to make sure it's snapped to the ground. You know, so we've got the shadow in there. We can adjust our color. Keeping in mind too, as we look at colors, I want you guys to do this. You've got to go beyond, well, I think that's cool. You know, there has to be a rhyme or reason. If you want to do a complementary color, one of the best things I think you guys can use, I don't know if I put it in the, I'll put a link here in the chat. Again, as a reminder, grab these links. So this is an awesome tool that Adobe has. If you're not the greatest at color theory, you just can't pull colors right out, you can come in, if you select a color, it can give you all the complementary colors that go with that. It gives them your RGB numbers. It gives you your hex numbers. You know, you can do shades, compound colors. I don't know what square means. Oh, I know what square means. Okay, so it's like directly across, directly related, you know, complementary, triad, you know, so you can get all these colors. So if you want a complementary color for that green, so first what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, as we all know, we can drag and drop, so well, that's pretty close. I'll come in and I'll go environment. I'm going to take that color and I'm just going to color pick that object. Now, let's say I want something that is complementary to it. Hold on, let me just go to complementary. Maybe that's a little bit vibrant. Let me just see something. So the RGB is not 110, 235, and 130. So it matches perfectly. But then if I want to come in and go to my object, and we're going to try to make that a complementary color. You know, so if you're doing things where it's going to be complementary, now obviously these are very contrasting colors. You know, it could even be something where find something that's a little bit closer. You know, you obviously want to find something that works, but using this tool to come up with your complementary colors can be very, very useful. It also talks about current color trends, what's going on in magazines and print, so that you can kind of see what is trending within this area. So again, let's say you're trying to do something that is, you know, the wilderness or communicate whatever. This helps you to go with there. It's trending colors. We don't necessarily need to, we're not trendsetters. You know, there are companies out there like Adobe that spend, and Pantone, hundreds of thousands of dollars coming up with trending colors. Use that information. You know, if you're doing a tech product, you know, here's all the colors that are currently trending for technology. So pay really close attention to the colors that you're using. So we've got that. I am fine, you know, coming into use the material. You know, if you want to make it flat or if you want to make it reflective, I only want you to use plastic. Okay? It's either plastic or it's diffuse. I'm not looking for glass. I'm not looking for a bunch of different materials. Let me just come back in here. We're going to Control CV. And then we're going to move it. So positioning it in some way, shape, or form. You know, having it in the foreground, having it in the background. Something to that effect. You know, play with that. So get a couple in there, even if it's multiple, however many you want to do. What does it say? What are you trying to achieve? You know, having it cut off. Pay attention to things such as negative space. Does this work? You know, is this enhancing it or not? I think someone had mentioned in the, oops. Why is that? Oh, that's because it's over there. You know, when we look at this one, that horizon line across the middle, you know, and I'll say 85% of you, 80% of you, all did something like this last semester in your renderings. I think you guys have probably matured now and can recognize when things aren't working more so than last time. But you'll notice that all of these good ones that we talked about don't have any of that awkward, you know, things where it's like, well, what was the intent of that? Was that intentional? It looks like it's a paper clip. What's going on? You know, tossing in another object. Oops. You know, where it's positioned, I want you to look at how it's, you know, don't just have it sitting on the floor. If you want, you can do something that's dynamic. This is up to you guys to create a decent composition. You know, you saw things that were hanging in space, but I want you guys to ask yourself, does this look good? What reference am I using? Why am I doing that? You know, we also talked about camera. So if we've got, let me just, oops, I grabbed the wrong one. So we can come into our camera settings and we can come down. Again, Make sure you guys are creating separate cameras so you don't lose them. Where's my focal length, depth of field? So I can come down to my depth of field, so which is down here in the bottom of the camera. I can use this little bull drop to select the focal point in real time. So I can click there, and you can see how this one gets fuzzy. Are you guys able to see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can click here and it gets the other ones in the background. I can click here, and then what you can do is you can come down and adjust the difference. You know, obviously extremely, and then very subtle. And you can tighten it up a little bit using your f-stop in that. So that's another way that we talked about what is your focal point, what is drawing your attention to that, you know. So in this scene, for whatever reason, I want whatever's close to me to be let me just go back here. So I want these things to be there as a complementary, but the focus is going to be on this. If you want to use multiple colors, that works great. We also talked about how can we, you know, how can we use the floor? What are we trying to communicate? So if we come in and we go environment and we can toss on our ground reflections, you know, is that, you know, does that do what we want? Is this attractive? Is it not attractive? How can we come in, go to our environment again, and look at our ground reflections, on or off? What about our shadows? You know, so ambient occlusion gives you that dark shadow underneath. Well, do I want that dark shadow, or do I want to lighten? Do I want to lighten that shadow up? And I'll be honest with you, shadows are not black. Shadows are a color of the material that is being reflected or what it's being reflected on. You don't see 100% black shadows. You know, they're extremely dark maybe, but usually, let me just find one here, it's that ground color, and that ground color is what gets darker. So you can see very different when you start doing that. So getting that set up, I'm not worried about you guys doing lights, okay? Just use the default environment, because that's not what this is about. We're not lighting our object. It's just about getting composition right for now. We'll worry about doing the lighting or being more dramatic later. So we also talked, or we also know that if we want to have ground planes on, you know, we can increase the size, but that doesn't allow us to control the reflectivity of that. So if you want to toss in a plane, so this is some of the stuff where, you know, I don't know why I always do that. Shoot, how am I going to do that? Hold on one second. Did I close that? I did too. Okay. So I'm not going to, I was going to look to find that to make it the proper color as that. But here we know that we can come in, and if we're going to make this plastic, Now we can control our reflectivity in that. So we can increase the reflectiveness, or we can add the roughness to soften it. Oh, hold on one second. So this is where we can start getting things, you know, to tweak that. What are we trying to do? Get that dynamic. And then this is also another quick way of, you know, if you want to go and get it a little bit blacker, you know, what are we trying to achieve? You can even see here though, you know, as we get further back, the focal point is still here. So even the reflections are crisper. So very much like what we saw on the Miro board. I'm not looking for you guys to copy, you know, a layout in the Miro board, because I want you guys to do what I want you to try to understand what you're trying to achieve. You can mimic it, but make it your own as well. Use it as inspiration. So we talked about using the models. We talked about the background. We talked about the floor reflections. You know, again, using your layout. Now obviously this becomes an issue when you use the backdrop, but using your camera layout and things of that nature. Now, because I want you to do multiple ones, that does not mean that you have to use multiple files. So what I want to show you, and this is new, is if you're doing something where it has multiple products or you're doing multiple layouts, normally I think what you guys would normally do is, you know, if I say, hey, I want you to render X, Y, and Z, and I want it in all these positions, and then I also want you to render X, Y, and A, you know, but I want it in different positions. So you'd probably save out 2 separate files. Well, what we can do is, I want to turn off my camera focal point, depth of field, there. And I'm going to hide that. So there's a couple things that we can do. So if we come over here, and you'll see model set. So we can add a model set, and we're going to call it cube. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. So now I've got a model set that is just the spheres. Well, let's say I want to do a different layout that is just a cube. So what I can do is come in and go add a model set. I'm going to call it cube. Now you can see I've got a different, shoot, I didn't mean to do that. No, that's right. So now I've got the new one. It still has my spheres in there. So if I turn those off and hide them in this model set, if I come back here, there they are. So I can come back to this one, and we're going to delete those. If I do this right here. And then I'm going to come in, I'm going to drop a cube in. Now, what happens is, here, I still have that set. So there's still that environment or that model set. So it's like walking from one studio to the next studio. all within the same file. Now here I've got the cube. You don't see it there, so I can right click though, and I can just say, you know what, render a quick thumbnail so I know what I'm looking at. At the same time, you can create cameras that tie in with this. So you can come in, and this is where you want to go, and you can say, you know, let's add a camera, and we're going to call it Cube 1, so that when you're in your model sets, you can go to that camera right there, and you know it's not, oops, turn that off, turn that back on. You can go back to that, but you can also create another camera. Let's say it's just for sphere. So now when you go to your model sets, if you want, you can go to your cube and you know what camera you've got there. If you want to go to your spheres, you can go there and you can click on, oh, what happened? Is that what I did? Bear with me for 1 second. Oh, I can't access because I've got it locked. That's why. Okay. So, but either way, what you can do is differentiate. You can understand what the difference is, you know, between cameras and scenes by doing that. So this is something that I want you guys to use so that you're not having to reset everything up. You can also set it so that the environment changes within each one. So if you wanted to have a different background in here, I believe you can change that. Let me just see. If I come in and I go environment, and we're going to go background color, let's just go backplate. Backplates. Oh, yeah, render thumbnail. So it still keeps the same background, but I think I'm missing something in the sense that you can change that. I'll have to look into that. But it makes life easier, especially if you want to swap out materials quickly and easily. Now, with materials, or sorry, any questions about that? Okay, so let's talk just quickly. I want to show you guys something about material. A lot of times when we're doing our renderings, you know, you may be wanting to evaluate, well, what do things look like with different materials on it, but not wanting to have to constantly change the material or reassign, because I don't know if any of you noticed, but if I've got this material here and I come in and I grab a new material and I'm going to assign this to here, you can see my original material goes away. So here the material is rounded cube. Well, I want to assign this to both materials. Well, I don't have that other material anymore. It's gone. So let's say that I always want to have an option where I want to take a look at these different materials. Sorry, let me just go there. Where in my rendering, I want to be able to explore multiple colors on an object. So I can come in and say, okay, so my materials, I'm going to take this one, and it's going to be called Cube 2. And we'll hit save. No, I don't want to hit save. Whatever. And then we're going to have Cube 1. Well, right now, if I want to change the color of Cube 1, I can do that. But again, I've lost my original color unless I hit Control Z. Or unless I save it and then have to constantly drag it in and reassign it. So what I want to do is I want to create a multi-material shader. And this doesn't necessarily apply to this assignment quite yet, or you can use it if you want to change material colors very easily. It's up to you. But by using a multi-material, I've got my Cube 1. Now it's like having a library within there. So I can take this Cube 1, and let's say I like all of the properties. I just want to be able to change the material color. So I can come over here, and I can create new, I can duplicate, or I can duplicate material and link textures. So I just want to duplicate this. I'm going to call it green, or no, you know what, blue. And then that's where I'm going to come in. I'm going to find the color blue that I want it to be. I'm going to hit OK. Now, if I come back to my scene and I go to my materials, and let's click this sphere, what I can see down here is it says multi-material. What that means is I can double click on it and I can say, oh, okay, this scene has it as blue. I'm going to make this as red now. At the same time, what I can also do is, let's say I want to do this as two colors plastic, but then, you know what, at the same time, I want to do a, oh, what are we going to do here? I can just drag and drop one. So you can see now how very quickly I can explore multiple colors, multiple materials with just one shader versus having to reapply it, or retweak it. This is great when you're doing color exploration or CMF or a variety of things. Questions on that? Do you guys see how there could be value in that? Okay. Oops, right. Okay, so this is one thing I'll show you. Or let me just think here. That's really the second part of the assignment. Okay. So what I want you to do for your assignment is to take the cubes, and again, I don't want you getting fancy like this, you know, simple plain plastic color. I want you to, and make sure you're writing this down, Jeffrey, I want you to do 2 rendered scenes. One with only a single object in it, one scene with multiple objects. The objects must be a cube, a cylinder, a sphere. I want you to create a model set like you see here that was done, so that you've learning how to do multiple things into one file so that you're not having to open and close things. This is where it becomes very efficient with how you're doing things in KeyShot.
Hey Travis,
Yeah.
just a clarification question. You said the three shapes that we should use were the cube, cylinder, and sphere. Does that mean for the second scene that has the multiple objects, we have to use all three of those, or those just our options?
Those are your options.
Okay.
You could use nothing but cubes. You could use nothing but cylinders. You know, but play with, you know, so you've got those two things. I want to see you guys be able to communicate to me what you were trying to achieve, you know, based off of what you see on the Miro board. You know, I was going for elegant. I was going for this. You know, what is it that you were looking at doing? You know, and then we'll be having a critique on, did you achieve it? Don't stay static, you know. Don't be afraid to do things different, you know, such as, you know, if you're going to rotate it and have it have things doing something different. Now, of course, that's not on the ground plane. You know, if you want to try to set this so that, you know, there's something unique, I'm not looking for not defying physics, but you should have a reason for that. You know, you could take it and make a couple of them. You could stack them. You could have them look like they're blocks, children's playing blocks. How are you going to create that scene to be either elegant, dynamic? One of the things that we talked about on the Miro board. Sorry, is there a question?
I have another question.
Yeah.
Clarification question. So for the first scene, I understand there's two scenes that we have to create. In terms of the environment that we use, does it have to be the same environment or
No.
scene? Okay, so it's
different. Right, it can be different, but the environment is still really basic. You know, it's colored background, reflections on the floor, no reflections on the floor. We're not getting into bringing in background. You know, I don't want to see back plates and stuff of that nature. That's not what we're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. When you do your two scenes, they need to be communicating something different. So I want you to say, you know, is it whimsical? Is it elegant? You know, what is it of these that you're trying to achieve? And that doesn't mean, again, like I say, if you're trying to go for whimsical, that doesn't mean you just go in and do this exactly. You know, find things that are whimsical. Find something that communicates that. You know, get some inspiration. As everybody's doing this, same as before, I want you to build your own little page, and I want you to put that on there. Now, for each one, what I want you to do, so in the very beginning, in the start, the process I want you to go through, is just start off by having everything white. Lay it out with just white. Get that camera, get that object that's set up on how you want it to be. If that is, let me go here, environment. Sorry, just give me a second. there. Have everything set up just as a white object to get the things laid out, you know, and take that approach first. So focus on the composition, the camera layout, you know, the angles of what you're trying to achieve, then go into adding the color. So everything should be staged, you know. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So that's what the assignment is. Don't be afraid to post up work in progress. Let's, you know, put up on the board, show your journey on what you did, what you explored. These are really simple to get quick, fast renderings. You know, so even if you did something, you know, and it didn't work, save the rendering, toss it up on the screen so that we can talk, well, why didn't you like that? What were your decisions? Also, I'm going to show you guys one thing here quickly. So before I show this, that's the assignment. Any questions on that?
What's the due date?
So the due date is for Sunday. The next part of the project will be that we'll be picking a project, or sorry, a object that you can use. Like I say, I mentioned in that link I sent you, I downloaded a bunch of different things that you can grab or try to use if you want, however you want to do it. But that'll be for later, or if you want to use one of your old models to elevate your rendering. Now, here's a freebie thing, because I still have nightmares about some of the projects. If I have a background, and I never showed you guys this, so that's fine. If I come into the background and let me see why'd that not come in? Camera. Bear with me. There we go. Okay. So a lot of you guys used this. We're not going to talk right now about whether it was good, bad, whatever. But one of the things I want to show you, because this may be something that we do for the next part when we toss things in, is if I... No, I don't want to use that. If I come into this scene and I'm going to grab a cube, so you can see I've got a camera angle, you know, I'm going to try to move it around to get it so that it matches the perspective, but it may not match properly. So what we can do is we want to get this, let me just go yes. We want to get this to match up because you can kind of see it matches up pretty good, but it's not quite right. Some of your objects will be even more off. But what we can do is come to our camera. We're going to go to camera 1, and we can go to under lens setting. We've already got perspective, or you can do orthographic. You know, what you can do is go match perspective. So this picture was taken with a specific focal length and camera lens. So obviously it's not a 100mm lens. It's not a 35mm lens. You know, you could sit there and try to play around, but what we can do with match perspective is exactly that. We can go with, where is it? Give me 1 second. Oh, it's down here. So we can go with 2-point perspective, which is exactly that, the X and the Z axis. So if I look at the X and the Z, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and I'm going to get it to go in this axis of that Z. And then I'll make this go in that axis. And you can kind of see how it's starting to match up the perspective. Well, now I need another line to go in the X axis. So I'm going to come down. And basically what I'm doing is I'm laying these things out. Oops, grabbed the wrong one. Come on. So that I'm telling this camera to match the perspective of the image. And this is how I'm mapping it out. And now we've got something that matches those perspectives. So if I rotate this, you can see that that goes against that wall properly. You know, so now we can put things in and move our camera around and it looks like it belongs and fits into that scene. 3-point is exactly that. We now add the vertical element to it. This obviously doesn't have much of a 3-point because as you can see, nothing really tapers going up to the top. But that allows us to get it in there. So in this one, I almost say I don't want the 3-point because it really doesn't seem to match. So I'm just going to go back to 2-point. Now, no matter what way I have this cube, it matches the camera perspective. Does that make sense? Was that kind of simple enough?
Yeah, it's a way better than just rotating it and eyeballing it.
Yeah, and I didn't necessarily get into that last semester. And I didn't think of it until I saw everybody start dumping things into backgrounds. So, but yeah. So this is what makes it a lot easier to have it look like it belongs. So you can kind of see if I look at this, nothing jumps out as in, oh, that doesn't seem to match the perspectives. Oh, and then we just hit yes. And it stays. So, and I'm not making the object any larger in scale. I'm just moving it from the camera's distance. So the back plate still is always a static item. So you have to keep that in mind. That's pretty much the lecture for today. So you guys can go off and work. You know what the assignment is. Jeffrey, if you could get that stuff posted up to the mural board here.
Yeah, I posted the notes, and I have a section that says assignment notes.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm starting the assignment as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from anybody about the assignment? Or do we have any questions for what was written, just to make sure that what was written was my intent and that you guys are clear on that?
Peyton asked if it was due this Sunday.
Yep, due Sunday. We'll review it in person on Monday. Any other questions?
Do you want this
So you-
emailed to you?
I'm sorry, pardon?
Do you want this emailed to you?
No, just the images up on the mural board. So create your own section like you guys have done so far, but put it over this way. And just post up the images up on the mural board. So create a collage. If you had some inspiration, put that on the page as well. Does that make sense? Other questions? Make sure, Jeffrey, if you could add that to the notes for assignment to make sure everybody posts it up on the mural board.
All right, great. We'll do that.
Okay, so we can have open discussion, talk about whatever you want to talk about, or you guys can all run to the wind. Your choices.
I'm gonna head out. Thank you so
Okay.
much and have a good night.
Awesome.
I think I will also run like the wind. Have a good weekend, Travis.
Yep, you guys, everybody have a good weekend too. Enjoy it.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Yep.
Bye, Travis.
See you, Chevis. Thank you, Chevis.
Oh, I gotta stop recording this.